the perfect time for the Ohio History Center to unveil its second largest exhibit ever, Ohio Champion of Sports. It's an interactive exhibit featuring stories, personalities, and activities about more than 25 sports, from the ones I just mentioned to others not covered as much, such as roller derby and e-gaming. Videographer Dan Connick got a sneak peek.
Ohio Champion of Sports tells the compelling human story of sports in Ohio. We know that we can't tell national sports history without Ohio. The birth of the NFL was in Canton. The birth of Major League Baseball started with the Cincinnati Reds. We have people like Jesse Owens and LeBron James. We know that Ohio's sports history is America's sports history.
I felt better than I did going into the first time when I fought for the title in '87.
We wanted to target and essentially tackle the topic of sports because we know that it has a broad appeal. Often when people think about history museums, there's a barrier there. They may think it's dry, they may think it's boring, or they may not see themselves in this history. But we know that there's such a visceral connection with sports in Ohio, whether you're a player, a coach, or a fan. Everyone can really make a connection with sports, and of course Ohio is the place to be. What I love about this particular section is that you see what you commonly think about when you think of sports history. You see jerseys. We have one from Johnny Bench, of course, a famous Cincinnati Reds catcher. We have Pete Rose, who was a player manager for the Cincinnati Reds and of course got embroiled in scandal. But we also have archival collections. One of my favorite pieces within this display right here is a scorecard from the 1919 World Series. That game, of course, was played between the Cincinnati Reds and the Chicago White Sox. It became a scandal in itself because of gambling. It was known as the Black Sox scandal. So this piece of history right here provides a lot of context on where the Cincinnati Reds came from, how they were involved in that scandal, and also their national impact. So we of course see jerseys, we see other sports memorabilia, but the archival collections provide that great context to tell the full story. You know, it is really odd to think about something from LeBron James, something from just a few years ago being in a history museum. When you explore this exhibit, you'll see a few items that you might not expect from a history museum. You're used to seeing things that are several hundred years old, but we know that LeBron James is a historic figure today. We're going to be talking about him for decades and decades. We also have materials from teams like Ohio Roller Derby. They're still playing today, but we know that they're historic right now. So we made a lot of decisions as we put this exhibit together to tell stories that we knew people would care about, that would be relevant to their lives today, that could reflect on where we've come from in our sports traditions and sharing these memories together. It's really important for us to make this a highly interactive exhibit. Specifically within this space, you'll see our wall of hoops, so people can test their basketball skills. Yes. It's a great way for families to connect and to engage with one another within these spaces. I think it adds a lot of variety, and it's a little bit unexpected from what you might commonly think about when you think about a history museum. Well, this is one of my favorite collections that we showcase with an Ohio Champion of Sports. This comes from the Toledo Troopers. They're one of the, I think, untold sports stories in American history. The Toledo Troopers were a professional women's football team. As the name would suggest, they were centered in Toledo, Ohio. They were extremely successful in the 1970s. They had 7 consecutive championships. They were so successful that the Pro Football Hall of Fame actually called them the winningest team in pro football history. So it's one of those unheard of stories, the untold stories of Ohio history that you'll get to see when you come to this exhibit. When people visit this exhibit, we hope they leave with a sense of connection, a sense that their history matters, and that sports really factors into a lot of the ways, a lot of the memories that we make amongst ourselves. There's a lot of identity tied into sports that we can all relate to, so that we hope people can see history within that lens, that they see themselves within these stories, and that it has an impact on them.